This meeting is called to order pursuant to the provisions of, the meeting of the planning board, Borough of Somerville for February 12, 2025 will please come to order. This meeting is called to order pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act. Both adequate and electronic notice of this virtual meeting has been provided at the way of publication of the Courier News on December 24, 2024. In addition, notice of the meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside of the Borough Hall located at 25 West End Avenue, posted on the municipal website, provided to the municipal clerk, and distributed to all persons, if any, requesting copies of same. This meeting is being recorded with both audio and video and may be rebroadcast. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Roll call.
Andrea Dare is excused. Chris Addix is excused. Art Akins is excused. Larry Cleveland.
Here.
Jason Kraska.
Here.
John Manilio.
Here.
Barry Van Horn is also excused. Mayor Gallagher.
Here.
Councilmember Vroom.
Here.
Chairperson Werner.
Here. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, approval of minutes from January 22nd.
So moved. Second.
Larry Cleveland.
Yes.
Jason Kraska.
Yes.
John Manilio.
Yes.
Mayor Gallagher.
Yes.
Councilmember Vroom.
Abstain.
Chairperson Werner.
Yes. All right, we have a hearing tonight for 444 Catherine Street. If you would like to step forward, please.
We are currently awaiting the arrival of our attorney, John Sullivan.
Okay.
He should be here momentarily. I'm actually going to go call him.
Okay. Do we want?
Our apologies.
No, no problem. No problem at all. We're not going anywhere.
We're skipping you to the end of the evening.
Do we want to go to one of the items for discussion, moving along? All right, so EV charging station.
Thank you. We got a response back from DCA Division of Fire Safety, basically saying they could offer no guidance.
That's fascinating.
The email says that they have no guidance to be offered. I drilled down with Robert Lynn on the fire marshal's coordination, and the other municipalities and the fire marshals have zero to offer. So the fire marshals are out, your DCA's out. So we're gonna, I guess, look at national codes, but there's nothing, it appears to be no guidance for best practices on where to place the EVs, charging locations.
Mike, have you checked with your planning organization in New Jersey to see if anybody within your network of planners?
I have, but not in the detail you're referring to. I will look at that.
I find it hard to believe, well, you know what, no, I shouldn't say that. It's not unusual that we actually have to create policy legislation for the state.
Right.
We've done it before, we can do it again if they don't have any. Yeah.
All right, so you'll just keep,
I will reach out to APA, New Jersey chapter, some of the planners to see what, if anything's out there. Robert Lynn is saying he's exhausted his things. We have his guidance document that the Board of Engineers and Robert came up with. The board has that, and I will see on my end.
In this guy's letter, he says reasonable standards. So they're leaving it up, this is the state saying, use reasonable standards.
Yeah, I responded to him by saying, please let us know if guidance come up, and he said, absolutely. But right now, DCA is offering no best practices on where exactly to install the EV chargers.
There is nothing regarding location and reasonable standards, I guess is what you're saying.
That's what DCA is saying. They're not offering any guidance from
At this point, it's local control.
local control, and obviously, we'd like the question is to find some guidance on this to help the board craft some reasonable ordinances on it.
Or I guess we will be creating that reasonable ordinance.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Attorney, yes, no?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
Yes.
If you guys would like to step forward again.
thank you. My name's John Sullivan. I'm an attorney with the offices of Vastola and Sullivan, and I'm representing the applicant tonight. My apologies for coming late. It's my first time to the Civic Center, and I parked in the parking deck and learned how to get here the hard way.
All good.
Okay, so the application before you, the applicant is Ronaldo Partners. They are the owner of the property located at 444 Catherine Street. And our proposal tonight before you is for a subdivision. What we're gonna do here is we're, on this property right now, there's an existing home, which is in the process of being renovated. And then we wanna subdivide the,
Kara, do we want to swear everybody in?
We can let him finish his opening, and then I'll mark the exhibits, and then we'll swear everybody. and
Okay,
we'll do it
sorry
all.
for the interruption, go ahead.
no problem. So basically, we wanna subdivide right down the middle, and we're gonna create two fully conforming lots. So we're not creating any new variances. The only variance condition that we have here, I believe, is an existing front yard setback for the existing home. I think 25 feet is required. We have 19.4 feet to the house and 14.5 feet to the front porch. So we do have a few witnesses tonight. We have our engineer, Mr. Nuschler. We have our architect, Mr. Meyer. And then I have Donald Ronaldo. He's a representative of the applicant. And we'll just put it into perspective to you. But there's not a heck of a lot in testimony in addition to the plans that we've already provided. Those plans are a subdivision plan prepared by Salvatore Miklowitz, dated May 14th of 2024, last revised November 26th of 2024. And then we did submit a set of architectural floor plans and elevations prepared by EMZ Architects, dated January 6th of 24, last revised October 10th of 24.
You have those? Okay, Madam Chair, we have reviewed the notice, everything is in order, the board has jurisdiction to hear this application. As usual, we will mark as Exhibit A1, the application and all corresponding documents as outlined in the board planner's report. A2 will be the notice and the proof of publication, and PB1 will be the board planner engineer's report dated December 31, 2024. We could swear all of your witnesses in at once?
Absolutely.
Do you all swear the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Just introduce each one of them.
Yes, why don't we begin with our engineer? Would you come up and just state your name and professional address?
My name is Richard Nusser. I'm a licensed professional engineer and professional planner in the state of New Jersey. We graduated in 1975 as an engineer. For those with math, that's 50 years ago. I've practiced engineering since that time in various areas of New Jersey on both sides as a municipal engineer and as a consulting engineer.
And you're also licensed as a planner?
Yes, I'm licensed as a planner and an engineer in New Jersey.
And your licenses for both are in good standing?
Yes.
And have you been accepted as an expert before any board or court in the past?
Multiple times over the past 30 years.
Okay. We would ask that Mr. Nusser be so accepted.
So,
In both the fields of engineering and planning?
Yes.
Board okay?
yep,
Mr. Nusser, you've reviewed the plans, you're familiar with the site and the application before the board?
Yes, I have.
And could you just briefly explain to the board the site as it exists now?
Well, that's a large lot for the area. Just get this plan here. It's a 100-foot by 165-foot lot with a single-family house on the left side of the property and a vacant parcel on the right side. According to the tax records, the house was constructed in 1897, so it has been there for a long time and occupied as a residence.
Okay, and then could you explain to the board the proposal for subdivision and the construction of the new dwelling on the right side of the property?
Yeah, the lot would be subdivided in half, creating two 50-foot wide lots. A new home would be constructed on the new lot, totally conforming with the setbacks.
Okay, and then each lot resulting from this will be fully conforming to the zoning ordinance?
The lot size, yes, is all conforming. The only non-conformance is the existing house's front yard setback.
But otherwise, the existing home and the proposed new home, they're going to comply with all setback and coverage requirements of the ordinance?
Yes, everything would be complying except that one thing.
Just wanted to direct your attention to a couple of the professional reports. The first one is the County Planning Board letter of approval, subject only to a recycling contribution. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the applicant will comply with that recycling contribution. Then wanted to direct your attention to Mr. Cole's report. And in Mr. Cole's report, if you go to page 5, he lists a variance and a waiver condition. And the first one is for the driveway width, and I do understand that the applicant will reduce the driveway width in order to comply with the ordinance and eliminate that variance as a condition. Is that correct?
That's correct. We'll change the driveway width to 10 feet at the street.
And then with regard to a waiver for street trees, I understand the applicant will comply, so we will not be requesting a waiver. Is that correct?
That's correct.
For each property?
For each property, I think it's 2 trees, one each property, right? Yes.
Thank you.
Wanted to direct your attention to section C1, requiring a revision to the zoning table. We will provide that, correct?
C1, you said?
Page 6, item C1.
Well, yes, we can revise anything that's necessary, but there won't be the 10-foot, the waiver for the driveway width will not be required. That will be complying.
And then I wanted to go to section 4, performance standards. In particular, item A2, dealing with roof leaders. Could you just briefly address that?
Yeah, I was a little bit confused by that one because it says we are providing an infiltration pit, and we aren't. We don't think we need one.
On sheet 3 of 6, it shows an infiltration pit, a big red rectangle. This is proposed dry well. On sheet 4 of 6, it identifies the square as proposed dry well. So
Okay.
So the board knows the property slopes to the south, so the runoff to the street may be a challenge. And to try to eliminate runoff on adjoining properties to create problems, I think that's why the dry well is shown. I had said that if we're doing a drive well, as the board's aware, there's a lot of soils, and it may not be feasible from an infiltration point of view. So if the applicant would agree, I could work with the applicant's engineer to work out the drainage. The goal was to try to get the drainage to the street or in the ground, not onto the adjoining properties.
Yeah,
Right.
I think we.
That would be acceptable, get the
Yes.
house and the driveway all draining out to the
It
street.
drives to the south, which goes into a medical building. It, unfortunately, the way the grading is, we might not be able to, by gravity, get the roof leaders to the street. And I think that's why the infiltration pit was shown, but it may not be possible because of the soils. But we can certainly drill down, should the board approve this, to address the stormwater management so that it doesn't impact the adjoining properties, which I think is the goal.
I think that's reasonable.
And that also covers item A4. With regard to item A3, public sidewalk has settled, needs to be re-leveled. I understand the applicant has agreed to take care of that and also repair any damage that might be the result of construction. Is that correct?
Of course, yes, sir.
Item A6, the existing shed, I understand that's already been removed?
It was leaning, it didn't have any footings, and it seemed a bit dangerous, so
Could we just, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you switched experts. Could we just get his name and qualifications and information for the record?
I'm Donald Rinaldo Jr. I am one of the owners of Rinaldo Partners. I'm basically, it's my project, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yes, sorry for the confusion.
That's okay.
And I would have known better. So, yeah, the existing garage, we took it down because we thought it was not really in safe condition right now. If we want to replace it, we would make an application conforming to all zoning later to rebuild a garage there, but right now, for the moment, we are not. So, but that one had no footings, it was leaning, and in one of the snowstorms, it started to creak and lean a little more, and I thought, well, if this thing falls, it's dangerous, so we literally just picked it right apart and put it in a dumpster because it was a safer play than to leave it.
And then item 8 talks about underground utilities. I do understand all of the utilities in the area are currently overhead, is that correct?
That's correct. The whole street is overhead. Poles are on the other side of the street. I understand it is in the.
Can you pull the microphone to you?
I understand that the land use has that requirement in there. In this case, it would be the, let it go off?
Yeah.
There we go, okay. In this case, it would be the only house underground, going underground. We'd request a de minimis exception to leave it go overhead and not have to install a pole. That would be another traffic impediment on our side of the street. So-
I understand. It's an RSIS, it's not a borough ordinance requirement. And on different applications, we've dealt with this issue. And you'd have to get a waiver for that from RSIS, not from the board on that issue.
So from what agency?
From the RSIS would be the DCA. There's a provision in the statute. For the board knows, the statute gets revised every year to 3 years, year and a half, 3 years. 15 years ago, there was an exemption for existing lots, or that exemption is no longer there. The RSIS clearly shows that if it's a new dwelling, regardless of where it is, the service has to be underground. I think the intent is, in 100 years from now, you will have all underground service. So this is coming up because we've had neighborhoods, as the applicant has said, well, it's all overhead. So they're saying, why? And it's the other side of the street. So we'd have to do a drop pole, which I find to be aesthetically not, it's not,
And it would still be overhead,
you go to a drop pole, then down.
but it would still be
Overhead across the street, down the drop pole and
Yes.
in. And unfortunately, the RSI says this service should be on.
So it's not in our control?
Correct.
Okay.
So if we can get a waiver for that from the state, should the board agree, conditioned on this, I'm all in favor for that, but what I'm saying is right now that our hands are tied.
I would rather have less poles. That's-
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
In an established neighborhood, it's less poles is better.
Right.
Yeah.
This
So-
is- This is common sense.
There we go.
They should just waive this.
Right.
I work for Verizon. I know what I'm talking about. So I certainly understand. It doesn't make sense to add another pole.
The
But if
zoning
you have to
officer-
go through that, then
right.
you have to go through that.
The zoning
agree with
officer
you
got the
completely,
information,
sir.
so we can provide the waiver. This has come up at least 4 times in the last 6 months on this issue.
All right, we will request the waiver, and if for whatever reason it's not granted, we will comply. Okay, items B1 and 2, we've already addressed that. Wanted to move on to section D, subdivision comments. Yes, we will obtain lot numbers from the assessor, and we are going to perfect this subdivision by deed if it's approved by the board. Moving on to section E. There are items, 1, talking about the width of the driveway, and as I said, we're gonna make that comply. And item 7 talks about having the driveway width down at the street at 10 feet, and then have it come up, and then have it taper out to 17 feet, so we can park 2 vehicles there. If that is the board's pleasure, we will comply with that as well.
Yeah, so the board knows it's a single-car garage with a single-car driveway. It's a 4-bedroom house, so the suggestion was, assuming the improvement coverage meets, the French curve it, so you can get 2 cars on the lot, side by side, because there's probably gonna be sometime down the road with 4 bedrooms, more than 2 cars.
So we can certainly do that. Other than that, there are a couple of items I'm gonna have the architect address on Mr. Cole's report. But other than that, we can comply. And just to answer one question, right now, there is not a backup generator that is proposed. So if there's any questions for Mr. Nusser now, or we can wait until we finish all of the testimony, whatever you prefer.
We can wait till all testimony is finished.
I would then call our architect, Mr. Meyer.
Good evening.
Mr. Meyer, would you state your qualifications for the board?
My name is Edward Mayer. I'm the principal of EM2 Architects. I've been an architect a registered architect in the state of New Jersey since 1998. I got my Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Notre Dame.
And your license is still in good standing?
Yes, it is.
And have you appeared and testified before any other boards or courts? in the
Multiple times throughout the state of New Jersey and other states as well.
past? We would ask that he be so accepted.
They're accepting.
You prepared the architectural plans that we submitted to the board, correct?
Yes, I did.
And could you describe the proposed new dwelling to the board?
As indicated, the dwelling is a 2-story, 4-bedroom home, about 2,200 square feet. Its size is 30 feet wide by 44 feet deep. It has vinyl siding, matching a lot of the other buildings, other homes within the neighborhood.
John, is it possible to get, it's shown on the screen, the package doesn't have the architectural drawings, the board doesn't have it. Is there a possible to get the tablet hooked up to the screen? No? No? Okay.
I have
I
another
guess it's not possible.
I don't know if I have that technological capability. I'll ask Mr. Mayor.
I have a big paper copy.
Wait, so do we have
We have a paper
copies?
copy of it. It was submitted, so I'm not sure.
I think we submitted an electronic copy as well. I don't know.
All right, let's just mark this just in case, because I don't see it referenced, not referenced in your report, right, Mike?
It's in my report, it's just what the board has, the copies, the 11 by 17s aren't the architecturals. I just don't know if there's paper copies. This is the site drawing, it
Yeah.
shows the box. We just don't have the architectural drawings. I was hoping maybe you put it on the screen, it's not possible.
Okay, so the architecturals are,
my laptop with me, and I'm not sure how it could be done either.
the architecturals are referenced in yours, yeah, the A1, 2, and 3, okay. Got it. Just wanna make sure we didn't have to mark something else.
And overall, do you consider what the proposed dwelling that we're going to
Could
put
we
in
just
there?
hold on for 1 second? Sorry. does the board want us to see if there's a way we could try and? put
Maybe
them on the
email, if you have a
screen?
PDF,
Yeah, that's
email
what
it.
I was thinking.
If you can email it to yourself and be able to bring it up on that laptop and through that laptop and be able to put it on the screen.
Oh, we're getting so techy.
I don't have, this doesn't have Wi-Fi on it. I mean, so how would you suggest I do it? I send it to you?
If the board needs it, again.
I can send it to you and you
Giving you the
can
option.
put it on top.
Oh, you have it on your phone, so it says snap a picture, or just text the picture that you send to
I can pull them out of my email too, because they'd be in my email.
Yeah, that's how I got it here initially. I put it on here before I brought it here.
He might, I don't know if he has it.
Okay, wait, I gotta turn my airplane mode off. I have to get into my email.
Oh, you just sent it to
Hold on
that?
a second.
Yeah, if you can give us an email for the person coordinating the monitors, then we can have them just throw it up on the screen.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking of. Ryan, just use your regular email address.
It would just be rbake@somervillej.org, rbakaie@somervillej.org.
RBAKIE
All right, just give me, I'll just
at
let me find.
somervillenj.org.
Maybe Becky can, you're right.
Okay, I
You
got
should
it.
have them in
Oh,
his.
you have it?
whatchamacallit, Yeah.
No, I found the things, I can email it. So if you
Thanks.
give me that email again kindly, I'll do it.
RB
RB
AKI
AKI
at
IE.
IE, sorry,
RBAKIE at
Somerville NJ
NJ
dot
dot
org.
org.
And my iPad doesn't have cellular, so I can't just.
Ryan
Brian doesn't know if we have him in the PDF folder.
It might take a minute, but it looks like it went.
Oh, yeah, no, well, I have it
Yeah.
here, so. So he's fine.
We have him in hard
Okay,
plans.
let's see. Arbaki at Somerville, yeah, mine, it shows having
nice
sent,
to
so you
show.
should have it
Yeah.
momentarily.
You got it, Ryan? Not yet.
It's all in the timing. Okay. We need a 17-year-old here to do this.
Yes, we do.
My 12-year-old.
Well, I was gonna say, or even a 5-year-old, because it seems to
Seriously.
they know earlier and earlier, and we get worse and worse as we get older.
Well, because the technology's getting
I know.
different. I mean, I just learned, the old one. There's all new stuff.
Yeah.
It's the only reason why we have children.
Yes.
I agree.
And to replace us.
That's what I tell my daughter every day.
Yeah, fix this.
Fix this. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's funny.
Yeah, mine are young and they're techie already. It's amazing. Anyway. So. I just realized it's this machine you're using.
Oh. Thank you.
Is there a rotate command?
Yeah, in the bottom right, there should be.
It's right here, I think, right? Is that the rotate? Yeah, okay, you got it. Here we go. Perfect. Excellent.
So there will be, right. We're good? Everyone can see it?
Yep.
Because you guys can see it up there.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So as you can see here, as I indicated previously, that it's a 30 by 44-foot house, that there's a basement level, that currently, we're not looking at finishing it, but someday in the future, it may be finished as well. On the first floor you see here, we have a foyer, we have a dining room in the front, kitchen, and a family room in the back, and then a one-car garage. Then on the second floor, we have the 4 bedrooms with 2 bathrooms, 1 master bathroom, and then 1 bathroom that services the other 3 bedrooms. And as I previously indicated, we're looking at vinyl siding, some nice wood trim. We're also looking at some asphalt shingles. And then the foundation will be a sort of a concrete finish.
And overall, you feel this design is compatible with what we have in the neighborhood?
Yes, absolutely. There's many homes along here that have very similar attributes and qualities.
And you had mentioned right now we are not proposing to finish the basement. I understand we are also not proposing to finish the attic. Is that correct?
At this time, I mean, this is all for entitlement to get an understanding of the scale and size of the house. But we reserve the right to be able to do that, at least in the basement.
Yeah, we're never gonna finish the attic, just
Yeah.
someone might wanna buy it and ask for a finished basement at some point, so. But we're not planning that at this point.
And then in connection with continuing just on some of the comments in Mr. Cole's report, could you just briefly discuss lighting that's proposed?
There's 3 exterior lights specifically at the entry points right now, as it is also at the existing home that's being renovated, where we're looking at having lights along the entry points as well.
And that, just typical residential.
I mean, yes, it's for being able to access the house at night when you go outside, and for security and for security and ease of entry.
So the lights will comply with the borough ordinance, the residential style lights.
Exactly.
Right.
And then there was a question about the proposed HVAC location and confirming that noise levels will not exceed what's permitted by ordinance.
Yeah, we'll definitely be following the ordinance and the code requirements for the air conditioning unit. We're looking probably at the side towards the rear area of the home, and it'll be in accordance with following all the setback requirements necessary. And the levels of the noise, the sound will be within normal AC unit, current today equipment.
So the sound data can be provided should the board grant approval?
Yes, absolutely.
Just to note that in recent years, there's been a bit of a push with the manufacturers that most of the equipment now is significantly quieter than it even was 10 or 11 years ago. It's really a good thing.
And I'm going to just stay with Mr. Ronaldo for a minute. The existing home, can you explain to the board what renovations have been completed and what might still be proposed for that?
Yes, well, let's make this easier. So the existing home principally was receiving an addition to the rear second floor to create a master bedroom suite and a rearrangement of the space on the second floor toward the front end of the house to reconfigure the shapes of the 2 bedrooms within the existing exterior wall layout. On the first floor, a wall was taken out to open the dining area to the kitchen area, and the kitchen used to be in the back, where that's going to become a family room, and the kitchen will be moved a little bit more toward the front. Basically, it just provides a lovely layout, highly usable space, and we are putting there was an existing laundry room on the first floor. We're adding a powder room. There's a very small addition on the right side. It protrudes about approximately 5.5 feet, well within the setback. We're nowhere close to our side yard setback requirement. And over that space on the second floor will be a hall bath and a master bath. It's a modest home. It finishes about 1,600 square feet, but it's going to be very lovely. The existing front posts that are made of wrought iron, it's like an older look, those are going to be replaced by columns that will be trimmed in AZEK, probably with a little crown head, some detail, make it a little more lovely. The brick on the front of the house is relatively new, so we decided to keep it because it has a lovely, quaint appearance. And the entire house will have brand-new siding, brand-new roof, and all brand-new windows, so it will look basically brand-new inside and out.
And then we have the elevation showing on the screen now. I understand you had some photos of a very similar house that you've built that you wanted to share with the board.
Well, I would love to show you one, so you can actually see it in color. I have one picture, but I'd like to bring it up, may I? So,
We marked that photo as a A3, I think we're at.
Yes.
where do I start? This side?
Wherever you want.
This is,
Oh, we have one? Okay.
yeah, I'll go back to my issue.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah, and would you explain to the board what that photo shows?
that was a house I built in Cranford a couple of years ago, and
Sorry.
it's about, I think that one's about 2 feet wider, but it's basically about the same shape and a very similar appearance. And it just has lovely, elegant lines. It's traditionally colonial. That has some nice front trims on it, like AZIC trims around the windows. I actually intend to do that on the new house to make it look really nice. And so, you basically have a pretty good look at the general scope of what it looks like. It's kind of a lovely, attractive, I realize that's subjective, but it's a lovely colonial presentation for a dwelling that's kind of elegant and, looks nice, I think.
So the finished floor elevation, I think on the pictures, it shows more than, I have it as 1.5 feet above.
I believe, it's, respectfully, it's my general intention to try to hit what we call foundation freeboard. That is the amount of foundation that is exposed over the grade level. To try to hit around 2 feet or just over so that we could use a 2-foot-tall basement window, which is nice because it allows for some, little more light. It's not cramped feeling, it's just a nicer look. And also, in the event you ever had to, you could actually crawl out of it if you had to, So I have a conviction that, rather than making the house look buried in the ground, if we're not anywhere near the, if we're not attracting a limit on the allowable height, which we are not, that, rather than maybe show a very small amount of freeboard, like a foot, it's better to show around 2 feet. House tends to be drier also, and also, that would be more contiguous with the houses on either side of the existing property. I actually bought some photographs, but they just kind of prove the point. That the house to the left of the property has a freeboard in the front of approximately 20 inches, and in the back a little bit better than 2 feet. And the house on the right is almost identical, a little bit more than 2 feet. I'd like to bring these photos up. So we're just looking to kind of do about the same approximate look, because there's no reason to pull it out of the ground more. On the other hand, it doesn't seem to be any reason to put it in the ground more. It just seemed like that right, pleasant height to show 2 feet of foundation. So I'd like to.
All right, so I'll mark these as A4 and A5. Mr. Ronaldo, you took these photographs?
I did. This is the house on the right, that's on the left.
Okay, so if we're looking at the house to the right, we will be marking as A4. And when did you take these photographs?
Yesterday.
Okay. And the photographs accurately depict what it is that
Oh, yeah.
you were looking, okay.
You can very clearly
And then
see.
A5 will be the home to the left of the
Subject property.
proposed lot. Yep.
Okay, and I just wanted to call Mr. Nusser back up, just so he can provide his planning testimony now that we put everything else in.
There are some houses up and down the street. I did some Google ones that, there's a bunch of them that are not, same setback. Just in case you need it.
Okay, Mr. Nusser, I understand you're gonna provide testimony in support of both a C1 and a C2, is that correct?
That's correct.
And could you begin with the C1 testimony?
Okay, the applicant is requesting the C1 variance for the front setback on the existing structure at,
Can you get the microphone a little closer?
sure. To the existing structure at 444 Catherine Street. The existing setback is 14.5 feet to the porch, where 25 feet is required, and 19.4 feet to the existing house foundation. The structure was lawfully constructed approximately in the year 1897 according to tax records, and has continuously been occupied as a single-family residence. Complying with the front yard would require relocation or demolition. This constitutes exceptional practical difficulties. The house has existed in the current location for over 125 years without any negative impact. There has been and will be in the future no detrimental impact to the public good. Granting the variance would not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan or the zoning ordinance. And the structure is not inconsistent with other homes on Catherine Street.
Okay, and then just kind of carrying from there, can you just explain, obviously you've addressed the fact that you do not believe there's any detriments. Can you just explain to the board what you feel the benefits are?
Yeah, it's an appropriate use and development of land in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, and morals and general welfare. It provides light, air, and open space. And promotes the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, communities, and regions, and preservation of the environment. Provides sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses, including residential. And it promotes desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. It's a suitable infill development, a continuous streetscape. Is a fully conforming single-family dwelling in a single-family zoning district. There's no detriment to any of the town's ordinances.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our testimony presentation.
Questions?
So, just a couple. Thank you. So just a couple. The existing empty lot has a lot of trees on it. Are you looking to clear cut? Are you looking to save some of those trees and utilize them as part of your landscape plan? What do you intend on doing?
There are a couple trees on the right side and one all the way to the left, and if I can keep those, I will. There's also a couple dead ones in the middle. One has actually fallen into the V shape of the limbs, and it's being held. It's probably not a desirable condition, but that's the way it is. That one definitely has to come out. So, and basically that group of trees anyways, where the proposed new foundation would exist. So I only want to take those out. The ones further toward the back of the lot can certainly remain. I think that, I try to not have houses within like 20 or 20, apologies, I misspoke, not have a tree within 20 or 25 feet of a foundation because you get negative impact from the root system, and, it's probably not healthy to have the limbs overgrowing the house. But aside from that, I would try to keep them. I think there's two on the right side that can remain and one on the far left. Now, whether one would have to go because of utility consideration is a different issue, but I would try to do my best to keep them where I could.
So the intent isn't to clear cut immediately, it's to see what you can preserve?
Yes.
Okay. What I didn't see was the western elevation of the sidewall of the home. I saw the eastern elevation, but I didn't see the western. And the western butts up to an existing house. The Cape Cod, I think it's the red Cape Cod.
Yeah, if we put this back up, I just scrolled to it, it's there.
It is.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Because I only saw the eastern.
Oh, look, there it is.
Okay.
So we have a rear,
Yeah.
we have a rear elevation and the right side elevation.
My concern, and I'm assuming my left, that's the garage area up to the front.
Yeah.
'Cause my concern is that, it becomes a large wall, where right now the neighbor is looking at trees. And I don't know if there's something you can do. I like the windows, but I don't know if there's something you can do to soften it in the garage area, just to, windows may be the appropriate treatment.
Add one more window in the garage just to have it look a little.
It softens it up a little bit.
Sure, we could do that.
That's my feeling. I don't know how the board feels.
Sure.
Yes.
We can do that.
adding some windows, 1 or 2 windows to the garage so that it softens that just solid wall look.
Yeah.
Add some interest to that
Yeah.
western facade.
Yeah.
I actually have a follow-up to that as well. So, yeah, talking about the west elevation with the existing neighbor, that's to that side. So I know the testimony was that the HVAC would be on probably one side of the dwelling. Has any thought been made to put the HVAC to the east, where there's a little bit more separation between the two houses?
That could easily be. That would be fine.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions, comments from the board?
Just another comment on the pre-existing non-conforming. I mean, I think every lot in Somerville is pre-existing non-conforming, so, you know, requesting the variance for the existing home as a pre-existing,
There are actually a number of them on the street,
yes, there is.
and there's a number of them even on Gaston, within 100 and something feet of the dwelling. There's a pair of them that are very close. They're almost about the same, so there are a number of them like that.
And then the only other area I would say is the architectural rendering you showed from the home you built in Cranford, I thought was very nice, very tasteful. You may want to show, we have 2 folks from the audience here, you may want to show that to them so they understand the style and form of the home that you're proposing. And I'm taking it's your testimony that the home will substantially reflect what's shown in that photo.
Another follow-up from the mayor's comment. So when the applicant has a chance, so.
Yeah, let's let him.
Yeah. A3.
Yes, A3.
Yeah, we really should get this on.
Yeah, we
If
just
there's
wanted you to be
further-
able to see the picture. We really can't take testimony or comments right now.
Sorry.
That's okay.
But the mayor did have a question.
No, yep, so I had a follow-up question on
John.
that. So on A3, so the house built in Cranford, I can't tell on the photo, is that vinyl that you're putting on this house or hardy plank?
That one is actually hardy plank, but the general lines are so similar, and the trim style on the front will be almost identical.
So your testimony is that substantially from an architectural, I'll call it fenestration, architectural look, the home that you're proposing to build here will reflect very similar to the home.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Any other comments from board members? The only thing I have is I do agree, the pre-existing is a pre-existing, not much you can do about that. It's not as if you were creating that when you build the house itself. I'm going to open to the public for comments. Yep. If you can come up to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robert Golsky. I reside at 436 Catherine Street, which I guess is Lot 13 on Block 81. It's immediately adjacent to the vacant lot that they're talking about. So I came because I was concerned.
Yes, the red cape?
It's green, but yeah.
Yeah, it's an older photo, I guess.
I think it was A5 the way you're describing it, to the right, if you're facing.
Facing it to the right, yeah, then it's A5.
Okay, 436. Okay. So my concerns when I came was basically first what the side offset was going to be between my house and the other one. And it sounds like it's, there's no variance requested, so I guess it's within, code. The other things that were of concern, and before I forget, the other thing about, I totally agree with you, it's ridiculous to not grant a variance to the existing structure. It's been there forever, as far as I can remember, so, no reason not to do that. The trees along the property line, that was my concern. The when they redid the gas lines, they had to move them, and they shifted onto the left side of the property. So it's still, of course, still on my property, but it's really close to those trees now. And I'm concerned that if those trees are removed, because the gas line runs through the roots of those trees, because they do extend onto my property, I'm concerned that there's going to be, you know, if the trees are removed, that there'll be some sort of damage. I would be looking to see that that doesn't happen, obviously.
Of course.
The other thing is about the drainage, because when I looked at the site plan, it did seem that there was a dry well on the front of the house that's proposed. And that property does get a little swampy with heavy rain. So, you know, if there are proposals to make it drain better, I'd be you know, happy to hear that. It sounds like there are things that are being proposed to make sure that it, you know, doesn't run off into other people's properties and things like that. So,
Yes, we're gonna work with the board engineer to address that.
okay. Well, those are my main concerns with that. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public have any questions or comments? All right, we'll close public. All right, can you read where we are at? Because there are a couple, like the drainage issues, things like that are part of that condition of approval.
Yep, so the applicants applied for subdivision of the subject property, and I will submit to the board that they have presented or attempted to present the proofs for granting of the variance pursuant to C2, as opposed to the C1 hardship requirements. I'll leave that up to the board, and Mike can weigh in on that as well. The conditions that I had was compliance with the county planning board recommendations, compliance with Mike's report, except as may be revised, as I'm going to discuss. Amend the plans to reduce the driveway width, as recommended in the report. They will agree to plant the 2 required street trees, 1 for each property. Work with the board engineer to resolve items A2 and A4 in the report so that it does not impact the adjacent property. Those are the stormwater management issues. The applicant will either provide proof of the granting of an RSIS waiver with regard to A8, which is the underground utilities, or in the alternative, if they do not get such a waiver, they will comply. I just wanted to note that Mike had a question as to whether the shed will remain. The shed has been demolished. Any new shed will either comply with the board requirements or they'll be back for board approval. The applicant will obtain any permits or code compliance or board approval that may be required for any future finishing of the basement or the attic. The lights will comply with the borough ordinance regarding residential style. The AC units will also comply with the borough ordinance, and sound data will be provided, and as recommended, the AC units will be moved to the easterly side of the property, or the dwelling, I guess. On the new lot, the applicant will save as many trees as possible. I don't know if the board wants to see or have them provide a plan for tree removal to be reviewed, or if that condition that they'll just work to save as many trees as possible is sufficient. The applicant will add 1 or 2 windows to the western facade of the proposed home, which is where the garage is currently located, to make that a little more attractive. The applicant has represented that the proposed home will substantially reflect what was shown on Exhibit A3 from an architectural perspective, and that was the photograph of the home from Cranford. And then I just had a question with whether or not the board wanted to see amended plans reflecting these items to the extent necessary for review prior to building permits.
Do we have the sidewalk in there, that they're gonna repair the sidewalk?
That's part of his conditions.
Yeah, of the conditions.
The only thing we didn't really discuss, we said filing by deed, which is acceptable, by setting the property corners. I think everybody's in agreement to set the property corners.
Like stakes or a monument? I guess
It's the
stakes.
rebar or.
Yeah.
It's just the backup real quick is, you can get a waiver for not putting the corners in. I don't recommend doing that because the property corners are used down the road
I'm
immensely.
I'm happy to have that done.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mike, for us? Anything else before?
I'll move it with the conditions noted by Kara.
Second.
Larry Cleveland,
Yes.
Jason Kraska,
Yes.
John Manilio,
Yes.
Mayor Gallagher.
Yes.
Councilmember Vroom.
Yes.
Chairperson Warner.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Have a good night.
Thank you all very much for your time and your kind consideration, which I very much appreciate.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
for investing in Somerville.
Yes, thank you.
What's your timeline?
Just normal, get it together and move it ahead.
2 years?
Well, I don't know about that long, but we'll see. No, I mean, usually once I get them moving, I can build one in 6 months, but there's a joy in creating something beautiful, and there's a joy in creating a home that somebody will love to live in. And there is a joy in getting calls from people for whom I've built years later around the holidays, just saying, how are you? We love our home. Come by sometime, have a drink with us. So this process for me has been, it's what I do for a living, but it's what I do for kind of my sustenance too, and I enjoy it. Even though this is not a large home to build, I felt that the plan was so perfect, that it was so nice, that it would make somebody such a great house, that I'm excited to go build it here. It's an exciting thing to do something that creative and that wonderful. So I just want to thank you again for the approval very much. Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. All right, more discussion. Planning board hearing timeline. Brian, you want to kick this one off?
Well, actually, we'll let Mike
All right,
kick that off.
there we go.
In your package that Ryan provided you, there is the ordinance that provides the timeframe. Just to refresh the board, this is the timeline, once the application is deemed complete, it's the time minimum standard when the board adjusts the planning board will hear it. And the real reason is in order to give, I'm reading C on the attachment, it says, in order to give the board and advisor sufficient time to review the application. And upon drilling down on this, it used to be that the Board of Health and Construction Office would issue comments to the boards. Right now, that's not happening. We get county comments, and I get comments from the fire marshal, who gets comments, I guess, from the Board of Engineers. So we're basically getting my report right now and the fire marshal's report.
And this was way before we had electronic versions, correct?
Yeah, I think this goes back into the 90s. It predates me. It's been on the books at least from 2001.
There was a slight amendment in 2001. It actually goes back to the 1900s.
Yeah. So the question is,
Definitely before electronic versions.
Yes.
the statute, it says the 10 days deadline is because the full application for MLUL statute in China says that for the public, it's, generally speaking, the public has to be noticed, 200-foot list, minimum 10 days out. So the 10 days here reflects that someone gets a notice, they can come to Borough Hall and see the complete application. That's what the 10 days is.
Okay.
So it appears that any date further out than 10 days is at the discretion of the borough. Karen, would you agree with that? So you have a hard line of 10 days. In reality, I get my reports out typically a week before. So you back any time up, I'm typically getting the report to Ryan the Wednesday, Thursday, so the applicant gets it and the board has it with time to
Review it.
review. So that's another week right there. So the question is, if it's a week before the meeting, and I think we can reduce these dates, it's just a question of what's the board's pleasure or recommendation to town council.
Yeah, I think 28 days, 35 days is too long.
Yeah.
But I think 10 days is too short. We do need to allow the public time to come in and look, and even in the advent of electronic media where it should all be available instantaneously, we still have to err on the side of giving the public that ability. And I would think around 15 days or so is reasonable. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
I just have a quick question about the number of days. Is this business days or just
I was
consecutive days?
just gonna ask the same
Kelly.
thing.
Yeah, so a couple comments. First, they have to notice and publish at least 10 days before. So to your point, it can't be 10, it's gotta be a couple more.
Right.
With notice pursuant to the MLUL and this legislation up in the air, we don't know what's gonna happen. So I think 15 is probably the very least, because you at least have to then notify the applicant they're complete, and then they have to prepare their notice, get it to whatever, the paper, the website, and I don't know what's gonna happen at that point.
That
So,
puts
I
it all too tight. That puts
But
that's
it-
too
it-
tight.
It is calendar days.
Okay,
not
thank you.
business days.
So it's
Okay,
cal-
start out there. So I would say 15 would be the least, 20 would probably give you that little more wiggle.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah, and then
That's
the
not
other
unreasonable.
comment I had is,
No.
if we're gonna make these changes, I was just a little confused, I understand what the intention was, but if we look at that first sentence, any maps and documents for which approval is sought shall be determined complete within the following deadlines. I would just kind of change the within to be, at least that number of days, we'll just change that verbiage a little bit once we decide what that'll be, because within.
Sounds like, yeah.
says,
Yeah.
You know, you got, it's within 28 days to the hearing date.
Yeah.
So we'll fool around with that a little bit, but, yeah, I would say at the very, very least 15. I think 20 is probably a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, would it make it easy, just make it even, divisible by 7, so 21 days and 28 days?
21 days across the board, John?
The-
Just make it easier, or do you see a distinction with the Cs and Ds for review time?
I don't, for what we're looking
Yeah.
at, I don't really see a difference.
Yeah, usually preliminary and final come in together, don't they, for the most part?
Usually,
Well,
this board is separating preliminary and final to try to eliminate 30 conditions or 50 conditions.
Okay.
So, answer the question, we're trying to separate them, John.
Yeah, so I think they all be the same, 21.
I'm comfortable with 21, getting it done.
yeah, I mean, I'm fine with any of them, from the 15 to the 21. 'Cause I guess my question is, so you deem it complete, Mike, that's when the clock starts? And if the applicant can't get it, noticed and everything else, that's on them. At least we're not the ones holding it
Right.
up. So I
Yeah.
don't care if it's 15 to the 21. If 15 is too tight for them, well, they push it back to the next meeting or whatever. So as long as we're not the ones holding it up, I don't see the difference from the 15 to the 20. It doesn't make a difference to me.
I think that this question came up, and if anyone knows otherwise, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was an application that was deemed complete, and there was the ability to notice for the next meeting. But it was less than the 28 days that was required here. So I think that's how it came up. So the applicant, it was deemed complete, Mike could get his report, the applicant could comply and get the notice in the publication done, but we had this time period. So that was the issue. So yeah, if the applicant can't do it, that's one thing, but, and nothing's gonna be perfect. I think we know that. There's always gonna be something that's gonna fall within some crack somewhere, but that's my understanding as to how we even really started looking at this.
So 21? Everybody's comfortable with 21?
I think 21.
Okay. Which dovetails into the next discussion.
Do we have to do we have to vote on make a recommendation for that, or,
Yeah, I think we would have to make a recommendation to council
right?
to amend.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I was already on my next, in
Yeah.
my head, I'm already on the next conversation. And
So I'll make a motion to make a recommendation to change it to 21 days across the board for both C and D, and change that terminology in letter C to at least the deadlines.
Right.
I'll second it.
Larry Cleveland,
Yes.
Jason Kraska,
Yes.
John Manilio,
Yes.
Mayor Gallagher,
Yes.
Councilmember Vroom,
Yes.
Chairperson Warner.
Yes. Okay, now our next conversation. So this has come up, I am going to turn this one over to Mayor Gallagher, crafting packets for council referrals. This is how we can give a better, complete package of information when we make a recommendation or something that we're referring to council, and better equip them to be able to make a better decision without asking 50 different questions because we seem to forget they're not here for our conversations.
Yeah, and Lisa and I had a big conversation about this last week, and how we can make it a little bit more user-friendly and informative for the council to begin to evaluate some of the recommendations that come from this body to theirs. One of the challenges is, sometimes at council, and I'll say I'm guilty of it, you speak in shorthand because we've gone through this discussion here, and we've vetted it pretty significantly. And when the council gets it, they will have a lot of the same questions that we've already gone through. So Lisa and I chatted and we said, you know what, why don't we create a packet for the council on any referral that comes from this body? And that packet will include a synopsis of the discussion, the pros, cons of what we discussed. And I've discussed this with Mike already as well. And a red line of what we're proposing to change, so that if it's an existing ordinance, it will show the deletions and the additions in that ordinance. And using graphics, we've actually gotten a lot of positive response on the fencing graphic that we did, which is incorporated. And where applicable, using graphics to help people people are very visual today. So helping them understand, helping council understand. So there's nothing wrong with being over-informative. It will allow council to review it prior to actually coming to the meeting, we hope, right?
Most of us.
Most of us. So, so therein lies, what we're trying to do is to give them the information, give them the synopsis of these discussions. We just had a 10-minute discussion on these timelines. Well, they're going to get it cold. In a different scenario, they would just get it cold, and why are you changing it? This way, we give them all of that information ahead of a meeting, so that when they get into the meeting, Roger or I can say, well, what don't you understand in the synopsis? And it forces people to, I think, review and understand a little bit better what is coming between the two governing bodies.
And why?
And why, exactly. So, and it goes to a conversation, a number of conversations. And our commissions, they can get some of that same information as well. I think it's good policy. So let's be informative as it transfers, because there's going to be a lot of information going back and forth between the council and the planning board over the course of the next 2 years with all of our redevelopment plans, our master plan. There's going to be a lot of give and take. So the more information we can provide to them and vice versa, the better. So
One of the things I just want to say it was actually after Brian and I had the conversation that I really thought about how, when an applicant comes before us, it's on them to prove, right? They have to prove why it is not a detriment. And I kind of thought of it the same way. I know we're not there, we have to prove ourselves to anybody, but we do have to give documentation or explain to them why we're coming to a decision. And in their defense, they are not part of these. They're not, they shouldn't have to go and watch our planning board meetings to understand our thought process. And then here we are asking them to change something. So that's how I looked at it. In talking to Mike, it won't be this lengthy 10-page report. It will be
that might be a challenge for Mike.
It will be a bulleted synopsis so that it is something, because we want it to be easy for them. We're not asking for them to do a ton more work and read a ton more, but they should have a general idea of why, to Larry's word, the word why did we do this? Is there something that triggered it? And how did we come to our decision on a very higher level without having to watch it and then read our minutes?
Yeah. Yep.
I love the idea. My only question is this going to go out for the public as well, or just to the council? So when you guys get the council packet, is it in that, or is it going to be attached online to the agenda as a note?
It'll be,
so the
it'll
public
be attached to the agenda.
so that they can see it as well.
Yeah.
Love it.
So we do need, do we need a, no, we don't need
No,
an
we don't need
action on
to take-
that.
no,
No,
that's
that's
the-
something internal, so we're good on that.
Internal.
Okay. All right, improvement coverage ordinance.
Yes, thank you. What just got passed out is the recommendation that went to council, that council introduced and had some comments back, so came back to the board for comments. I also had the opportunity to meet with the Environmental Commission. I got some of their feedback last night. And because of that feedback, what you have in front of you is the setbacks, or the existing ordinance that talks about decks. If it's more than 1 foot above, it's a 5-foot setback, or if it's a non-conforming structure to match the structure. So the structure's 3 feet.
Okay.
The deck can match the non-conformance, and you'll see that in 2B, referring to patios have no setback, the deck's 1 foot above. This question came up, what's the setbacks? Those are the setbacks.
Okay.
So if the board has any concerns with these setbacks, now's the time to drill down on that, vet that. Secondly, the Environmental Commission had 2 comments. One is to how the deck ordinance works is the slats, you don't have a point discharge. The water, in theory, will go through the slats and go into
The ground.
the ground. To keep that, they had recommended that covering a permanent roof be prohibited, because a permanent roof would make a point discharge, which makes perfect sense.
Okay.
That's a reasonable.
Yeah, got it.
So if
You can have
the board,
retractable.
I was about to say, they're
Right.
allowed to do a temporary, which is like a retractable if they wanted to.
we're talking about like a porch, 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Got it.
closed
Just want to make
porch.
sure for clarification for everybody that it's, you can still do
They say,
temporary.
and it's a good point, if you put a permanent roof over it, you're no longer having the slats and having a deck distribute uniformly the runoff, the stormwater hitting the deck.
No, I think that's a good comment.
So,
So actually, I'm actually, what constitutes permanent? Having walls or no walls?
Can't be moved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
can't
Okay.
remove it.
yeah.
I don't think it
Yeah.
has anything to do with walls.
So an awning, a canopy, an umbrella, they're okay. It's just a permanent
I think
fixed.
the distinction would be retractable or non-retracting, a permanent.
You know what I'm thinking?
Yeah, I'll look at the ordinance on that, should the board want a permanent, to make sure it's clear to what, Lisa, what you're saying, you want this clear as day, what exactly we're saying is a permanent structure.
Yes, I
So
think we need to
don't get
clarify
caught
that,
up in
please.
somebody cranking up a big awning and somehow calling that a permanent structure is what you're getting at. And I can certainly work on that to, should the board want to include that. The second thing is the pools. The pool surface, the Environmental Commission, some had the cover. It's gonna be covered 6, 8 months, 10 months of the year, sometime, maybe 8 months of the year. The cover may make this an impervious surface, so how does the cover work into this? And the second comment was that, yes, the pool surface, but because of the pool itself, we're not allowing infiltration into the ground because you're putting basically a bathtub in the ground, right? So they're saying there is a distinction being made that we're, with this, by ignoring the surface water because it's no runoff, that we will be impacting potentially infiltration in the soils from that structure.
I think I want to say this gently. I think the goal of what this board's recommendation was to allow people, residents, homeowners, to invest in their property easily and enjoy their backyards nicely. And I think we made a solid recommendation. We can sometimes get lost in science, and I think it's really an effort to allow people to enjoy their backyard, and that's really what it is. Larry?
Somebody looked at a couple of towns nearby, and some towns exclude the pool as part of any kind of impervious coverage.
Right.
Simply exclude, other towns do, so it just depends.
Yeah.
It's a coin flip. We decide we're gonna do it this way, that's what we decide. It's, the point was to change these things, change these ordinances was to make it easier for people to build a deck without having to get a professional. Yes, or a pool without having to get a professional.
without having to go to the zoning board.
Zoning board.
Where it will
That's-
cost
yeah.
thousands.
Have
So
a professional for the
I think
pool.
that's something that I was thinking about, and with the decks and everything, you know, this isn't not that it's not allowed right now, it's just that they have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to do it. So I don't, to Brian's point, I don't think we want to lose sight of, we're not trying to put something into existence that's just not possible. Absolutely not, there is absolutely no way it can happen. We're trying to do away with the extra cost of somebody trying to improve their home. So I think that point is getting missed, right? Because these things, it's not that they're not allowed, guys. They
Yeah.
can go and try
Yes.
to get this, right? And so I think we need to not lose sight of that. In everything, the whole purpose of just backing up even more of a 50,000-foot view about this impervious improvement coverage ordinance, looking at it was, there are so many things that we're punishing our residents for that have been in existence. For instance, we had an application before us tonight that has been in existence forever. Now one piece of that land's touched, and now we're gonna punish him for it, right? He had to come here to get a variance. So I think that's something that we wanna remember, is that the intent of what we're trying to do, not necessarily the details of why it shouldn't be done. And I do agree with some of the tweaking, and I think we've done a good job of just not opening up the floodgates, but I would just ask that we all, everyone, not just on this board, remember the intent of why we're doing this isn't to open up things that have never been allowed, or, you know, we don't allow now. It's just we're trying to make it a little easier for our residents and not always touch their pocketbook every time, or deep dive into their pocketbook necessarily every time they want to improve their home.
Yeah, and just to dovetail, I do want to just, you know, point out, they still need to get permits for all of this stuff. It's not they're not getting permits, now we're giving them a blank slate. So if there was any conditions or any adverse effects, that would get brought up during the permits and the inspections to make sure that, you know, it's done right, so. And then I agree with everything both of you guys said.
I just had a secondary question about the decks, because people brought it up. Should there be a clarification in the ordinance about how large a deck can be in relation to the proportion of your house? If you have 1,000-foot,
I think that's
It
how
is.
you guys came up with the number you did, right?
Yeah, so I think what we thought was that the zoning controls will control the size of the deck.
but where is that stated? Because that became a question.
Well, it would be the improvement
Yeah.
coverage, Larry.
Yeah.
We're giving 50%, but you still have to comply with the improvement coverage.
Yeah.
So obviously, a larger lot, you're allowed more improvement coverage, so it's proportional, small, so, right?
And I
Should
think,
that be stated?
I think a 10 by 10 it's minimal proportional to almost any dwelling.
That's what I'm saying is,
Oh, no,
I
I
think
agree
it's
with
self,
that.
that's why they came up and landed with those numbers, is because across the board, I don't think you're gonna have any homes that it's not gonna be proportioned to.
Yeah,
So they still follow the impervious coverage after the 10 by 10.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And I,
Stacked down by 50.
and Ryan and myself, we looked at the YouTube from the council just to get a gleam, and the council recommended some clarification that the 50% only complies to decks, not to any other
Yes.
improvement coverage. So should the board want, we can make clarification. I think it's fairly clear, but we can make it clearer that the 50% is over 100. It does not include driveways, patios, just the deck where we have the slats.
I'm sure you can figure out a way to
Yes.
add some more words to make it clearer. I have no doubt in you, I have all the confidence in the world in you, Mike.
I think that
So,
50% needs to be clarified, maybe
Yes.
as an example.
Look,
For example, this would, you know,
I get
a
it.
mathematical.
I understand, Larry.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I actually like the idea of using examples. I think that works very well. It clarifies it for people, because sometimes the planning ease gets in the way of
Yeah.
understanding.
I kind of feel like that's kind of like the synopsis that somebody just suggested we do. It's all coming together.
And here's what I would also suggest, that this be our test run for the packet. Because we're going to make an official referral back up, if it passes, back up to council. I don't think council's reviewing it at their meeting Tuesday. It's going to be pushed to the following.
Yeah, I didn't think we had much time. I thought I had to get
Yeah.
this recommendation should the board want to
Yeah.
make these changes to council, but Kevin's saying it's not on the agenda
Correct.
for the Tuesday after President's Day. So we have some time to get this in a more user-friendly or
Yeah.
more intuitive form.
So we should move it
Yeah.
with the revisions that we discussed.
So we're gonna make a motion to find this draft ordinance consistent with our master plan
Yes.
and make the recommendations noted back to council prior to second reading.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Larry Cleveland,
Yes.
Jason Kreska,
Yes.
John Manilio,
Yes.
Mayor Gallagher,
Yes.
Councilmember Vroom,
Yes.
Chairperson Warner.
Yes. All right, affordable housing update. Anything?
Real
we need to
quick,
know?
the numbers went out to DCA, it's done. We're starting to look at the fair housing plan, and I would think starting soon the vacant land adjustment. We're basically starting the process of putting the plan together. And the charge was to think outside the box and be creative, to find creative solutions to addressing this.
Yeah, Colin put together an agenda over the course of the next 5 months, between now and July 1. We're meeting weekly with folks from the ad hoc, and we're walking through it. And as soon as we have something in a shape that's ready to roll out to planning board and council, as drafts that we can start to discuss, we'll bring everybody up to speed.
If I may, we're targeting.
You got to talk into the microphone.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Name and address, please.
Yeah. We're targeting to get a draft plan to this board by the end of May. By the end of March. Right. And then we can discuss it. It should be in public. And that draft, with whatever corrections we need to make, will go to council for another public review. Then it'll go back to the committee again, and we'll tidy it up and go through the whole thing again in March, early May. The plan being that we should have it complete by the end of May to meet the other deadlines that are required.
And both governing body, well, not governing, but both the planning board and the council will have to approve it.
Yes. Yeah, well, the planning board's got to approve it and recommend it
Yep.
as an as part of the master plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Then it's got to go to Trenton and all sorts of neat things, yeah.
Good.
Can I
Thank
sit-
you, sir.
Can I sit down now?
We didn't ask you to come up, so yeah.
It's getting a bit fresh.
All right, my comment, I really don't have any comments. Actually, I am going to bring up, I spoke to Ryan. Moving forward, we are just going to, when the draft goes out, please respond whether you will be in attendance or not, okay? So that we can track that earlier. No, listen, we all haven't done it, and I told him, I said, we're all guilty of it. It's like, hey, if you don't hear from me, I'm coming. Well, we had a little bit.
Positive.
Yeah, so that's just keeps us, and then it's a little bit easier for Ryan to track it. Also saying, oh, we're getting to a point where we might not be able to, or how that's, so just to give our board secretary a bit of a break, and then me not a heart attack tonight. Would be great.
And also, it should be directed only to you.
Yes, and that's the other thing. I was like,
yeah.
please do
Reply
not
all.
reply all. So I think we might need to inform all, even those that are absent, that we don't reply all on our emails.
And probably the easiest way to do that is if you send it just to the chair and then BCC everybody, then even if everybody accidentally hits reply all, it's still.
It's just you and I then. Okay, thank you, Ryan.
It may be good on one of our light agendas to have Kara just give a primer lesson on Oprah compliance. Yeah.
That would be extremely helpful, so thank you. All right, I'm going to open up the meeting to the public for any comments or questions on anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Okay, hearing none, I'll close that. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?